The Rosie and Bill Show wish to thank our primary sponsors. The Malin Agency, located in Springfield, PA, where they take pride in exceeding expectations every time.
The Roselli Agency. Brian and his team of insurance professionals have been serving the needs of Chester County for more than 2 decades.
Anthony DiCecco and our friends at Tennis Addiction are ready to serve all your tennis needs at their beautiful facility in Exton, PA.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? Caught in a landslide, no escape from reality. Open your eyes, look up to the skies and see.
Welcome everyone to the Rosie and Bill Show. When I first saw a video of our guest performing, I have to say, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and I was blown away by what I heard. And every video I watched thereafter was better than the last. And each one left me wanting for more. And more importantly, left me wanting and waiting for an announcement that I'm hoping comes soon. An announcement saying something about our guests coming to perform in the Philadelphia area. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Rosie and Bill Show a musician, our recent Rock and Roll Hall of Fame guest, Danny Seraphin, described as simply incredible. Nina DiGregorio. Nina, welcome to the show.
Hi there, how are you?
Doing great, absolutely great. I'm so excited.
Before we begin, I just have to comment that we all have blue on. And Bill, I don't know what's gotten into you. I mean, we were on television doing an Eagles promo, and now we've got the Mafia over here. We've got
Well, you have to accommodate your guests.
Yes. And for those of you, for the few of you who maybe haven't seen any of Nina's incredible videos on her socials, she often wears some Bills gear, including a really cool looking Josh Allen jersey, who's my second favorite quarterback to Jalen Hurts. But I love Josh Allen, and I always want a Bills-Eagles Super Bowl. That's what I'm looking for every year.
That would have been great last year. I feel like I'm a little tired of Patrick Mahomes. So,
So are we.
Yeah, we are too. That was extremely disappointing, but anyway, okay, so back to you, Nina. Now, we understand that you started taking lessons and playing the violin at a very young age. What drew you to the violin? And honestly, I tried it once and I have very prominent collarbones. It was so painful. How did you handle it?
yeah, I have all of the marks everywhere. It doesn't go away. Well, actually, I started the violin. It's a very funny story. I didn't want to play the violin when we entered 4th grade in school. I was already playing piano. I had started asking very young for piano lessons, and I believe I started around 6 years old on piano. And when we entered 4th grade, we had to choose a band or orchestra instrument to learn for school. So I put down my first choice, alto sax. Second choice, tenor sax. Third choice, bari sax. I want to play the saxophone. One, because I love the music of the 1950s, like old school rock and roll. 2, because The Simpsons was really popular and Lisa Simpson played the saxophone and it was just cool. So I put that down and the band director calls me into his office. He's like, well, are there any other instruments that you might want to play? We have a lot of people that really want to play the saxophone this year, and we only have so many spots. And the other thing is you're the smallest one. I don't think you're going to be able to carry this thing to and from the bus every day. I mean, I've always been the smallest person everywhere, no matter where I go. And he's like, how about the violin? It's a lot lighter. And I was like, okay. So that's the story of why I play the violin. It was decided by my fourth grade band director.
You know, it's funny because how people are led where they need to go. Like, who would have thought that that very innocent suggestion or need of the band director would turn into what it's become for you?
It's turned into a career for me just by fate.
Yeah, that's incredible. When did you start writing arrangements for pop music? Because you were classically trained, right, on the violin?
I was classically trained. I have a master's degree in violin performance, classical. And until I was in my early 20s, had only ever played in orchestras and string quartets and things like that. And I think I started writing pop arrangements at around 13 years old. I had put together a classical string quartet of my fellow classmates, and we used to play little local weddings. Like, we were working musicians at 13, 14. Our parents would drive us to our gigs. We'd play wedding ceremonies. You know, we'd pack up my friend's cello and all of our instruments, and they'd drive us to go play weddings when we were very young, which was a cool way to have a stream of income at that age. You know, granted, we probably made $50 each per wedding, but that was huge money to a 13-year-old. So we were happy about it. But I started to I was like, you know what? It would be really cool if we could play some of my favorite music at these wedding receptions that we do. So I think some of the first ones I did were Kashmir, Eleanor Rigby, Baba O'Reilly. I did some Aerosmith songs. I did some Billy Joel songs, and I would listen to the parts, and I couldn't afford music notation software on the computer. I was a kid. And so I would, you know, just get computer paper, and I would draw the staff lines myself, and I would hand notate the entire string quartet chart, and we would play them at local weddings in the Buffalo area as teenagers. And then eventually we would play in like Italian restaurants when we were older teenagers and things like that. And that's how I started writing my first charts.
How did people react? So if you're at a wedding and they're probably expecting a certain type of sound and you start breaking out Kashmir and Aerosmith, how did people react initially?
It's the same reaction that we get now, decades later. It's, I've never heard a violin do that before. And they're always really excited. And no matter how many times people say they've heard Led Zeppelin, they've heard Kashmir, when they hear that opening riff, they all do the same thing, you know, every single time. So.
Well, you had to be really good as a 13-year-old for people to hire you at weddings. I mean, people don't want their wedding messed up.
My friends and I were pretty serious musicians. We did the New York State, all-state solo festivals, all-state orchestras, competing with, you know, Juilliard prep students and things like that when we were young. So I was taking private lessons with a member of the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra, and we were serious musicians. We practiced, and I was, you know, at the level where I could play wedding music decently by the time I was 13 or 14 years old. So it was fun. It was fun because my friends were also serious about it.
Well, that definitely helps. Was there, on a personal level, was there a moment or an event or anything, if you look back, that, you know, something happened or something came to mind where you said, you know, music, I think that's the career for me?
No, my whole life, I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. When I was 5, 6 years old, I read books about the brain. I was pre-med as an undergraduate student, but I never wanted to quit violin. And every time I would try and quit, something so good would happen, it would just pull me back in. So I couldn't quit. So when I'm at the point that I need to take the MCATs and start getting ready for preparing to go to medical school, my family takes a vacation to Las Vegas. I have a few cousins that live in Las Vegas, and I just went with them when I was in college as an undergrad student. And we go to a show, and I meet Wayne Newton's music director after the show. The show was the Shintas, who are from Buffalo, and my family knew them from the Buffalo area, and they hit it big and had like a headlining show at the Rio in Vegas at the time. And so apparently Wayne Newton had just lost one of the violinists in his show, and they were trying to fill the spot. And the Shintas vouched for me and said, this girl's amazing. Like, you know, you got to hear her play. She's great. So I got offered a job to start with Wayne Newton. And instead of going to medical school, I was like, well, you know what? I could, since I'm going to go to Las Vegas, why don't I just take 2 years there? I'll play the show and I'll get my master's degree in violin performance at UNLV while I'm there, because it's there and they offer it. So why not? And then I'll go to medical school after that. Well, here I am, still not a doctor. So
That is incredible. I don't even know where to begin pulling that story apart. First of all, you don't set the bar too high, like this incredible musician and a neurosurgeon.
I did want to be a doctor. I don't know how my
Wow.
parents feel about this career choice, but after Wayne Newton, I got a job in Tony Braxton's band as a solo violinist. I did some work with David Foster after that. I did some work with Cheap Trick and Deep Purple. I got to play with them, and just one good thing after another kept happening, and it kept delaying me from. Yeah, I thought it was going to be a 2-year blip. I go get my master's degree. I go play some fun gigs and get a little taste of that, and then that's it. And it turned into an entire career, and then I produced my own show, and here we are.
Well,
Nina, I have to just ask, as you were saying, it kept delaying you. I'm wondering, could it be that instead of delaying you, these things were coming together to direct you to kind of where you were meant to be?
I think that that's probably the case. I mean, my entire career has kind of been one of fate. It wasn't like I ever set out and planned to have a music career. And in fact, I tried to exit my music career on numerous occasions. But then, like I said, some great opportunity would pop up in front of me. And it kind of led me one step after another. So I feel like, I'm in the place that I should be. Though if I had another shot at it, or a clone of myself, I would have gone either into astrophysics or been a neurosurgeon. So
you're like, I think we're talking to a genius over here, Bill. Well, let's fast forward, Nina, to a group that you started called Bella Electric Strings. How did that come about?
Bella Electric Strings started kind of back what I was telling you about when I was 13 years old. I had an all-female string quartet. We used to play those little weddings. We were called the Sweet Expression String Quartet back then when we were little kids, but we always referred to ourselves as the Gangster Quartet, and we all had like Bugsy Siegel type nicknames, and I was the Dapper Don of the quartet back then. It's a Buffalo thing. So anyways, my first arrangements started with this group. Then we all went to college. We went our separate ways. We still sometimes keep in touch on social media and things, but we ended up in all different parts of the country. When I got to Las Vegas, I moved across the country alone. I was a broke college kid. I didn't know anybody other than the job that I had, and I had to make my way from scratch while working on a master's degree in classical music and learning that repertoire and trying to work 5 jobs simultaneously to pay my expenses on the West Coast. And so I ended up getting hooked up with Yamaha through one of my friends who also played violin. She was a lady about 20 years older than me who had more connections in town, and she kind of took me under her wing. She said I reminded her a lot of herself when she was young, like my sense of humor and things like that. And so we became friends, and she introduced me to some people at Yamaha, and I started doing clinics for them. And in return for doing clinics for Yamaha and going to the NAMM show and performing, they would give me instruments to start this group. So these expensive electric instruments that once seemed so unattainable for me to be able to do, I was now able to own. So now all I needed to do was to get some backing tracks produced and to write even more arrangements so that we would have a full show. I was able to get the Sibelius software, so people didn't need to read my handwritten notes on napkins anymore for my charts. And it kind of all came together when I met my friends at Yamaha and was able to get my first quartet of electric instruments. At that point, we put the group together. My friend, who unfortunately since has passed away from an illness, she's no longer with us, but she introduced me to some of the local agents in town, and I eventually changed the name of the group to Bella Electric Strings, and we started doing a lot of corporate events, sometimes over 200, 250 corporate events a year all over the world. And we have groups of musicians all over the country who play on our roster now. And from that, excuse me, it's allergy season in Las Vegas. So if you've ever been to the desert, it's just not a good thing. And I'm struggling with that right now. So anyways, after we'd been doing that a few years, someone came up to me and said, I have a theater in New Mexico and I want you guys to do like a show. This is great. You got to you're doing all these guitar solos on violin. I'm like, they're like, do you have a stage show, like a production show version of this? And I said, why, sure I do. And I took the gig, which was, 9 months out. And then I turned around, I was like, oh crap, now I got to go write a production show, because I didn't have something that was suitable for a ticketed audience as opposed to just, background kind of corporate, we just stand up there and play music. So I wrote special arrangements, that really showcase the solos. They flow like a production show. We have video content that syncs with the music. We sing in the arrangements. There's some comedy and humor and choreography and audience interaction. And I wrote the show that became the Femmes of Rock show that we tour now. And again, by fate, that some guy came up and said, I want to put you guys in my theater. Do you have a show? And I just said yes, and then did it. And now we have the show. So
Wow. That's incredible and the fact that you have that fearless aspect is just like, yes, because you believe in yourself and you can do it.
Well, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because sometimes I bite off a little more than I can chew, and then trying to make deadlines is difficult, but most of the time it's worked out for us.
Yeah. And now, Nina, you mentioned a couple minutes ago some of the names and some of the people that you've shared the stage with at different points in your career. What are some of your fondest memories looking back? And is there anything in particular that you took away as a great experience or lesson learned from any of the folks that you've worked with?
There were a few moments that were like career moments where I remember being like, this is definitely something. One was I got to perform on television for one of Muhammad Ali's birthday celebrations, and we were performing with a lot of guest artists. And we are rehearsing prior to the performance, and we didn't know who the guest artists were going to be. We were the orchestra who was going to be at the MGM Grand Arena, who was playing. And, they put some charts in front of us, and I start fiddling with the chart to just kind of get my fingerings written down, because we're sight reading them in the shows. And I realize it's superstition. And I'm like, no, this can't be. It can't be. And sure enough, like, I was playing with Stevie Wonder that night. And that was kind of a moment for me where I was like, I can't believe this is happening. I didn't know I was going to play with Stevie Wonder tonight. There he is. I'm on stage. There's Stevie. There's me. There we are on stage together on television. And that was one of those moments where I was just, taken aback by it. So I would say, like, that's one of the things that I really remember being special.
Has there been any songs or arrangements that you would jump out at you that you would say are the most challenging or really difficult?
I always say that the Rush song Losing It that I covered on Facebook, YouTube, you can find it, with my fiance right after Neil Peart died, it was probably the most difficult solo I had to learn. It was kind of one of these things where I'm kind of going in blind a lot at the time. If you're a guitar player and you want to learn a lot of this repertoire, you could just go on YouTube and find hundreds of tabs, transcriptions, official, scores, tutorials on how to play the Crazy Train solo or whatever you're trying to learn. But the violin is a totally different instrument, and hardly nobody is doing this, and especially not to the level to be teaching other people how to do it. So when I'm learning these things, I'm starting from scratch, because there's no manual for it. There's no way to learn it, and I'm not sure there's anyone that could even teach it to me, because there's so few of us out there. So with Losing It, I was able to find like a live recording of one live recording of Rush doing it, and then the studio take, and there's no ISO tracks, there's no score that exists for it. And I had to retune my instrument to a different key. And also there's a lot of time signature changes in Rush's music. And when I realized that I had to tune my instrument to a different key than concert pitch, it became a lot easier for me. And at that point, it went smoothly, but there was nobody there to tell me that. I had to figure it out. So that one was difficult. A lot of violin players can cover these solos, play the notes, sound great, but they sound like a violin. Now, how to make them sound like the instrument that you want to replace in a band is another story. It's a whole different talent to do that. And I actually made a video on my YouTube channel about exactly how I go about my process of recreating these solos. So if anyone's interested in like a longer version of it, they can check out that video on my YouTube channel. But pretty much you dissect how the original sounds, all of the styles that the guitar player used, the way it was recorded, the amp settings, and then you figure out how to replicate it on the violin. Some of the sounds, like in Beat It, when I did Beat It, I don't have a whammy bar on my violin, so I use a Digitech whammy with my foot, which is different because now I'm trying to like replicate some of these whammy things, but I'm not doing it with my hand. I'm doing it with a foot going in the opposite direction as my hand, and it takes some practice. And a lot of these things, I'll order a special pedal just for one song that I'm trying to get a specific sound for. It took me a long time to figure out how to do tapping on a violin. It was like this very delicate balance of effects and settings, and I haven't quite launched my Eruption cover yet, but you'll see it soon. So,
Nina, I'm wondering if you could create, because obviously you've proven in the past that you'll take on challenges and you'll, like you said, you'll meet those deadlines as difficult as it may be. But if you could create the perfect performance, where would it be? What would the venue be like? What would it look like? What would it sound like? If you were to just use your imagination to create that ultimate performance for you, what would it be like?
well, I'll give you the exact scenario. This coming up year, the Super Bowl is going to be in my current hometown of Las Vegas. So if the Buffalo Bills could get their rear ends to the Super Bowl this year, and I could play the Bills shout song or the Star Spangled Banner for the Buffalo Bills at the Super Bowl in my hometown, that would be pretty great as a lifelong Buffalo Bills fan. Other than that scenario, which as a Bills fan we know is highly unlikely of ever happening, other than that, I'm a huge Beatles fan, and if one of the remaining Beatles, ever gave me the opportunity to perform with them or write string arrangements for them, that would be a okay, I can retire now type situation.
Well, I have a question, because obviously with what you do with the group and your shows, you have to have a whole package. And you do. You have what Cyrano de Bergerac calls panache. You've got looks, you've got talent, all of those things. Now, you have to have quite a wardrobe for that. How do you go about choosing the style and the mood of the wardrobe and costumes?
You would think that I didn't think about this that much, but I have a totally different wardrobe for live performance than I do for my social media videos, and there's a reason for that. In a live performance, you're on stage, you got the lights, you have to look like a rock star, right? You got people buying tickets to see you play. You need things that people are gonna be like, whoa, that doesn't look like something you would see every day. So I have a wardrobe lady, Diana Eden, who has done a lot of shows, television stuff, and she's been our exclusive. She hand makes some of my outfits. I have a replica, a female version of Jimmy Page's dragon suit that she handmade for me. And so I'll wear that during some of my Femmes of Rock performances. And a lot of our stuff is custom made for that. And more rock and roll looking, we got spikes, we got like the skirts and the boots and stuff like that. But when I'm in my home, like I'm just sitting here and I like maybe just ate a banana and now I'm going to film a video and I don't feel right dressing like that just to do these covers. Also, being a female musician on social media, I did not want to get into the situation where people say, the only reason that people watch her videos is because she's showing her body. So I'm very careful to wear t-shirts and jeans in all of my social media videos.
Well, I will commend you, Nina. I think you've got some of the coolest concert t-shirts. I love the different, you've got so many different bands and so many different cool tees that you wear when you're playing. And it really is a shame that even has to be a factor in terms of how you look, because anyone who watches your video of anything of you playing should have the same reaction I do. Their jaw should drop and they should just be sitting there going, wow, she's amazing. I don't care what she's wearing.
What have you got coming up for the rest of the year?
May 5th and 6th, we're going to be in McHenry, Illinois, which is near Chicago. 2 shows at the Vixen with the Femmes of Rock show. Then we're going to my hometown, Buffalo, New York area. We're going to be playing Canandaigua, New York on June 23rd and North Tonawanda, New York at the Riviera on June 24th. It'll be a fun homecoming. I haven't played home since before COVID, so this will be a big, we've changed the show a lot. We've added a lot of new medleys. It'll be fun to go back to Buffalo for that. After that, we are coming to the Philadelphia area in September. I believe this is, hang on, let me check because I just signed the contract today for it. September 23rd to be exact. Tickets are not on sale yet, so don't bombard the venue yet, but it's going to be at Bluebell, Pennsylvania at Montgomery County Community College. There's a wonderful theater there, and they have a wonderful music program, and they're going to sponsor our concert to bring us to the area. So it will be fun because we'll get to interact with the students and let them watch our sound check and kind of give them an idea of what to expect on a from a professional tour date.
Well, I know 2 talk show hosts not too far from Bluebell that would love to come and see you and meet you in person.
For sure. Just let us know.
That's great. Well, we look forward to it because you guys rock. It's such a unique show, and you're also talented, and it's high energy and just so creative and inspired. So congratulations for all that you've done. And I'm glad that you answered the call to be a musician because, I'm sure many people appreciate that. So thank you so much, Nina, for joining us. And folks, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.